Alright, yeah, welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another edition of Historic Brawl, my favourite format, and this one's going to be a little bit of a shorter video. This is going to be a deck based around Ugin the Spirit Dragon, and the reason why this deck's going to be a little bit of a shorter video is because I feel like this one's a little bit of a one-trick pony. It's very fun, but the entire goal of this deck, for the most part, is just to get out Ugin the Spirit Dragon as early as possible. It's an 8-mana Planeswalker in complete colorless, so we have no colored permanents. This is an archetype I've been asked repeatedly to build, so here it is. This is actually one I've played on the channel before, but I think it was a long time ago, and since then we've had Jumpstart and Armenket, and lots of artifacts have actually entered the battlefield, as it were, for this deck to really feast off of. So yeah, 8 mana for a 7 loyalty Planeswalker, a really absurd cost, but for an absurd payoff. The +2 allows you to deal 3 damage to any target. The -X is the one that we're going to be doing almost certainly every single time, exiling each permanent with converted mana cost X or less that is 1 or more colors. So it's a one-sided exile-based board wipe, only for our opponent, because our entire deck is colorless, so nothing our deck can put out is actually going to get hit by this. The -10, if you can get there, if we don't need to -2 low and we can tick up very quickly too, is gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and then put 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. It won't typically win you the game, but it will be a hefty swing that should do some decent amount of damage. So yeah, that is the essential part of the deck. If you pretty much get the gist, you could go straight onto the gameplay, but if you want a little bit more of an in-depth talk about this list, then let's get to it. So this deck is all about ramping into Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Fortunately, we're in the color, or lack thereof, of mana rocks. So we've got Guardian Idol, Mindstone, Treasure Map, we have Altar of the Pantheon, we have Chromatic Lantern, we have Mana Geode, Manolith, Mirage Mirror to a certain extent, Araska Relic, Palladium Mirror. I'm sure you're getting the point now. Most of our deck is Mana Ramp, and Mana Ramp with the occasional little bit of changes in here. I'm not going to really get into most of them. Things like Treasure Map can become a land. It also makes those treasure tokens right there, which we can use to sacrifice and draw cards. But yeah, it's really nice for that. The additions for this list are going to be things like Solemn Simulacrum from M21, a 4-mana 2/2 that can actually search out a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. You may notice, because we're in colorless, we only have 3 planes. The way that it works in Brawl, whenever you pick a colorless commander, you get to pick a basic land type, and you can put that one legally into your deck. So we've got 3 planes, because, you know, didn't really want to just shove any old colorless card in here, right? But yeah, a couple of planes in here. There's a few reasons for that. One of them is to enable Solemn Simulacrum for a start. The other is also for Fabled Passage in here, which we can actually use to thin the deck, which is kind of relevant. It can shuffle our library and things like that. We do have Crucible of Worlds in here as well, which allows us to play lands from our graveyard. So if Fable of Passage is in our graveyard, then we get to play it, and then thin it, play it, and thin it. We can only do it 3 times. We used to have like 5 planes in here, I think, but we've had a few colorless land inclusions in here. I figured I might as well add in. And it all leads open to a Field of the Dead deck as well, which says if you've got 7 or more cards, or 7 or more lands of different types, then you make a 2/2 whenever a land enters the battlefield. So it really benefits us to have as few planes in as possible. But we still have a few reasons to keep planes in, things like Field of Ruin, which can attack non-basics, and then put basics from our deck into the battlefield, and again, we can repeat that with Chromatic Lantern. We do have Ghost Quarter in here, which is a Ghost Quarter lock. This is another way we can technically win the game. We can attack their lands, and they search for a basic, and we keep doing that every single turn with Chromatic Lantern until they run out of basics, and then from that point forward, Ghost Quarter becomes a strip mine effect. Our opponent has to sack a land, and then they don't get anything. We play Ghost Quarter, and we repeat until they've got nothing left. Excuse me. But yeah. Other than Ugin the Spirit Dragon, we do still have some alternative win conditions, so we're going to get into those right now. We have Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, a 10-mana 10/10 with Indestructible. Whenever you cast this spell, you get to exile 2 target permanents, and once it enters the battlefield and starts attacking, it's going to exile the top 20 cards of your opponent's library every single time. So at max, it's going to be a 3-turn swing to finish off your opponent with a Nulamog, which is pretty solid. We have Traxxas in here. Debated actually cutting him, but he's a decent blocker in the early game. You can get him down exceptionally early. If you got yourself one of your turn 2 mana rocks like Guardian Idol or Mind Stone, you can get it down on turn 3, which is kind of nice, and then everything in the deck untaps it, which is cool. So it's a 4 mana 7/7 with Trample and Vigilance, effectively. We also have Ugin the Ineffable as well. It says colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, so that makes all of our mana rocks 1 mana generating 1 mana, so, you know, free. And we also have Chromatic Orrery as well, which, you know, is a 7 mana that generates 5 mana, so it's really cheap, and we can do lots of stuff with that. Other than that, though, most of the deck kind of speaks for itself. I guess Mystic Forge is also a win condition as well. Get to look at the top card of our library at any time and cast artifact or colorless spells from the top of your library. You can't play lands off the top of your library with Mystic Forge, so you're going to be using that pay 1 life to get rid of those most of the time, but, you know, after that, all of our mana rocks really come into their own, since we can, you know, play everything off the top, or just draw it if we can't, or get rid of it. Transmogrifying Wand is our removal. Spark Hunter Mastercore can be used to deal with Planeswalkers. And Perilous Vault, if all things go horribly wrong from Armenket Remastered, we can pay 5 to exile this and exile all non-land permanents. It's going to be pretty brutal for us, but we're going to fire this off if we're already losing. This is going to be our board wipe outside of Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Shouldn't ever really have to use it, but it's there. We've got Khan the Great Creator, shuts off our opponent's artifacts, turns our non-creature artifacts into beaters as well, so our Dream Stonehedron is a 6/6 at that point with the tick up. You can't use the minus, because the way that Brawl works is essentially you cannot have a sideboard, so the -2 doesn't do anything. It's just the passive and the tick up, but in a colorless deck, it's really worth just running Khan the Great Creator anyway. I wouldn't really recommend it in most decks, though, outside of Mono Brown, which is what we're playing. We have the Khan, Scion of the Lands, ticks up, adds 2 cards of your opponent's choice, and they get to pick one of those, put it into your hand, and then the other goes into exile with the silver counter on it. This is actually one of the uses for the -2 on Khan, because Khan says you can choose an artifact card you own from outside the game or in exile, and put it into your hand. So when our opponent exiles a card with Khan, Scion of Urza, on the choice they didn't want you to pick, it goes into exile, which means that the Great Creator can -2 and pull it out with the silver counter attached to it, which is kind of cool. But Khan Scion of Urza is also a win con in itself for the -2 to make a 0/0 construct, or Space Marine as I like to call it. Gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Pretty much should speak for itself, I would imagine. And yeah, that's essentially all I'm going to go into with this deck. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you do, hit that like button and subscribe. This is going to be my last Historic Brawl video for a while, I would imagine. I'm just losing my voice a little bit, but today's videos are going to be pretty sweet. There's some honestly absurd games that I really did not expect from this deck, so I hope you enjoy them. If you do, like, subscribe, and let's get to it. This video is brought to you by the generous support of our wonderful patrons and channel members that you see here. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to cool content like sneak peeks, bonus videos, polls on future content, or access to a personal deck critique from myself every month, then hit the join button down below, or check out the Patreon link in the description. With all that said, let's get into the gameplay. Okay then, we're in, and this hand's perfectly keepable, to be honest. It's got a turn 1 tap land when we don't need the mana, and it's Field of the Dead. After that, we've got Guardian Idol into Hedron Archive, and that means we've got lots and lots and lots of mana. Hopefully we can do something with Khan the Great Creator's passive. Activated abilities of Artifact can't be activated. It's definitely potential for that to be useful. But yeah, let's go for the Guardian Idol first and pass the turn. So our opponent is playing Corvald, Fey Cursed King, a 5-mana 4/4 with flying. Whenever Corvald enters the battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. And whenever you sacrifice a permanent, you put a counter on Corvald and draw a card. I've got to imagine that Ugin is very exceptionally good against a deck like that, since, you know, they want to build up a board for things to sacrifice. And in general, like Gutter Bones, they seem very coloured. So, you know, destroying all the coloured things shouldn't be too difficult. And, you know, when we've forced our opponent to sacrifice with Corvald and we just -5, which is easy to do with Ugin, being him 7, It's pretty good. Alright, so let's just go with the Prophetic Prism to dig through our deck. Just looking for land drops, and we found one. So that means we've got 4, 5, 6, 7. We're 1 mana away from Ugin, so we're going to go Radiant Fountain into Golden Egg, probably. See where we want to go from there. Our opponent might be inclined just to tick up Blast Zone. It's definitely in their best interest to do something like that, otherwise, yeah, something like Mana Geode will ensure that Ugin comes down next turn. So let's do Radiant Fountain, Mana Geode, and we'll draw. Maze Mine Tome. Yeah, sure, why not? Golden Egg, draw the Maze Mine Tome, play the Maze Mine Tome. Pass the turn, and we'll scry. We don't need a land necessarily. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We could take a land just in case we're forced to minus Ugin into a position where it opens him up to something like a Scorching Dragonfire. Alright, so our opponent should sack a coloured permanent here. Anything else would be a horrific mistake, and yep, they go with the Gutter Bones, which is absolutely the correct thing to do. Probably digging for Ugin answers, if I had to guess. And we're not too in need of card draw necessarily, so I'm going to go for the Scry here. Ulamog, exactly what we're looking for, actually. An alternative win con. So we're just not going to use that ability, and yeah, let's just go for it. Ugin -5. Get rid of Corvald. He is 5, let's just double check. He is. Alright, there he goes. So Ugin's on 2. Susceptible to getting destroyed. Just a little bit. But we're in a solid position now. We can start ticking up and lightning bolting things. I'm sure there's quite a lot of lightning boltable targets our opponent could play here. And eventually we'll get to the point where we can just Ulamog and probably eat someone's lands, maybe. I don't know. That sounds like a fun idea. Murderous Rider. Alright, there goes Ugin, which is fine. Just means we can reset him and use him all over again. So he costs 10 now. We're probably likely to Ulamog before then. I don't know, though. We'll see. Let's go for a Scry. Traxos. Probably not. Transmogrifying 1, though, is pretty funny. We'll keep that one. So let's go with, I guess, a draw first from the Maze Mine Tome. Looking for land drops, really. Sunscorched Desert. Okay. Ping our opponent for 1. Because we can. And yeah, let's just play the 1 down. Could even play Khan the Great Creator. Would you look at that? Khan the Great Creator. Tick up on our Prophetic Prism and then hit him for 2. So that Arcane Signet now no longer works. So we've slowed down Corvald in that fashion. I'm going to pass the turn. Could probably get away with a huge Stonecoil Serpent as well to win this game. A lot of their removal is probably going to be multicolored. Like Bedevils and things like that. We've got Murderous Rider out of them, so they could have maybe an Eat to Extinction. Grunk. He's a 6. So if we could, you know, kill Grunk, that'd be great. Fable Passage. Grab a Plains. Oh, look. We can play Ugin for 6. Yeah, -6. Get rid of all the coloured permanents. Take up with Khan on... You're a 3. I'm just going to hit you for 2 again. I don't want to expose my transmogrifying wand that can turn Corvald into an Ox. So yeah, let's just pass. I think we're going to keep the Maze Mine Tome for a draw. Although, if they kill my Ugin, scrying to find a land might not be the worst thing, since we're going to probably just Ulamog them next turn. Alright, what have you got? Arcane Signet doesn't work, remember, so they've only got 6 mana here. Perhaps they thought they had 7 mana, which is why they've played a Guildgate over maybe another land they might have had in hand. Hard to tell, really. Vraska, Golgari Queen. That might want to go after the Transmogrifying Wand. Alternatively, they could use it to sack the Arcane Signet, which is functionally completely useless right now. And then we can tick up on a Hedron Archive as a 4-4, maybe. We don't even need to do that, actually. Ugin needs a target, right? We can just send 3 points of Vraska and then make our Prophetic Prism attack that. We're in no rush. We've got a lot of value on board. Yeah, the hovering Ugin. It's maybe a sign of I have answers, which they do. Wow. Killing it with a Heartfire is fantastic. Love to see it. Alright. Yeah, they've had enough. I think I was deciding whether or not I wanted to Maze Mine Tome there as just a scry, which would get rid of it, and we wouldn't have drawn many cards from it, but I think we were just in such a dominating position that there wasn't much chance of them getting out there. As far as like their lands are concerned, we could actually take them off of black by attacking the Guildgate and the Overgrown Tomb, which is actually insanely powerful, to be honest. Play an Ulamog, kill their black sources so they don't have the exile for something like Eat to Extinction, and then just start eating their deck away with the attack trigger. Alright, really good start for this deck. Alright, we're in, and we could be up against a matchup that is kinda tough. But we'll have to see. It all depends on whether or not we can get our commander to resolve, essentially. And I'm going to keep this hand, because we do have Field of the Dead, which is certainly a card that can be very useful against our opponent. Thassa Deep Dwelling is our opponent's commander. A 4-mana 6/5 with Indestructible. Let's go with... I don't think Ratchet Bomb's necessary. So let's just thin the deck with Fable Passage. Boop. Alright, yeah. I don't think Ratchet Bomb's necessarily good, but our opponent's commander is a Flicker commander, essentially. As long as your devotion to blue is less than 5. Thassa isn't a creature. And then at the beginning of your end step, exile up to one other target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under your control. So essentially, they can next turn go ahead and flicker this and start drawing cards every turn. It's pretty good. We're going to go with the Sun-Scorched Desert, dealing 1 damage to our opponent. Fortunately, it doesn't hit creatures, otherwise that would be pretty disgusting. And yeah, let's just drop down the Relic. The shame here is that we can't really do anything about the Thassa right now, and their way of defending themselves is typically just counter spells and bounce spells. So they should have a decent answer to Ugin's Spirit Dragon when the time comes, and they'll know the time is coming because it's not exactly the speediest ramp to our commander ever. But in that time, maybe we can get Dreamstone Hedron and Orrery down and have some card advantage along the way, maybe. Or even Karn to make some constructs. What about Karn, actually, right now? Is Karn good? Karn's land drops next turn. Which puts us on 6 mana for the Hedron into an altar. I guess that's okay. Karn, Scion of Lands. The reason why I call it that is because when you tick up, it reveals a land almost every time. This time it didn't, actually. It's Hedron Archive, which is probably going to be their pick anyway. Yeah. And your opponent always gives you the mana. So, Karn is good for land drops. Got to keep that in mind. I think they're going for Thassa with counter backup. Or they just wanted the greedy Altar of the Pantheon, because it does trigger off of gods when you tap it for blue. So they could gain 1 life now. I doubt that's really what they went for here. Gonna go for Nyx Lotus. It's pretty good. It's a card I wish we could use, but, you know, for obvious reasons, not really possible. Alright, Karn, tick up again. Chromatic Lantern and Transmogrifying Wand. The Wand is pretty good if our opponent ends up in Agent of Treachery territory. But we're going to go for Hedron Archive into Mana Geode, actually. It's got the Scry attached to it. I think that's got quite an important piece of tech to it. Field of Ruin. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I wouldn't need this to cast my Ugin, but I would need it to cast it again. I suppose I should probably keep taking my land drops. If they have to hold up and counters every time, so be it. Riptide Lab bounces wizards for 2 mana. 3 mana if you count itself as well. Sir Eleonora. I've played with this card. It's a thing. And Treasure Hunt. I don't know why our opponent played all of this, to be honest. They know what's coming. Perhaps they have Agent of Treachery and they are baiting me into it. There's not much I can do about that other than play down Spark onto Mastercore the turn after and kill my Ugin with pings. But this comes at a heavy cost. I'm -5ing, I'm turning off the Nyx Lotus. So we get rid of all of that. And our opponent scoops it up. Yeah, I don't understand that. Presumably they've got counter magic. It's the only reason that this deck can ever win is because it can defend itself with counter magic. But when bad things resolve, they're usually dead unless they find Agent of Treachery to flicker with it. Which is why I love this card in theory, but I absolutely hate the fact that it's just been ruined by Agent. But you know what? My hatred for Agent lives on in many different ways, and hopefully we never have to find out why. So yeah, let's go to the next game. Oh baby, is this game going to be miserable. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, as our opponent's commander. The card nobody misses. Let's see, this hand has a cast trigger in Ulamog, but that's really about it. I think we take the free mull on this one. This is going to be a pretty miserable matchup. It's obviously going to be Azorius Control, so 5 mana for a 4 loyalty. You get to draw a card on the tick up and untap 2 lands, because reasons. Ooh, this looks much better. The minus allows you to get rid of anything with absolutely no restriction whatsoever. We are going to play... We don't have any tap lands here, do we? We do not. Alright. So I'm just going to play Mirrodin's Core and pass. And then the minus allows you to win the game by slowly exiling all your opponent's permanents until they lose the desire to play the game. Which must have been a, you know, Wizard's intentional style of play. We're going to go Prophetic Prism, though. Draw a card. Punch Spell Piercing. Alright, we actually might win this game. Don't count a card draw, especially Prophetic Prism. Why? Why bother? Alright. Midnight Clock. Opponent's got 2 mana open. Probably going to use it to counter the next thing, because they just absolutely turbo-slammed counter magic there. Spell Pierce literally could have been used on Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Just want to point that out. Just got Manolith. It resolves. Don't know why, but opponent's deemed that fine. Which is fine by me. But yeah, the reason why I don't think we stand much of a chance of winning this one is because Teferi is going to draw into a counter spell on Ugin, and we're just going to be basically making land drops and mana dorks and mana rocks all the way up to Ugin to get countered again. That's going to be the beginning and end of this game, in a nutshell. Bit of a one-trick pony for that reason. Chromatic Lantern. And you know what? Let's have a 3-3. This will get countered. It did not get countered. I know nothing about my opponent. Did not use their mana to put a counter on Midnight Clock. I'm assuming they've got a board wipe. Because Stonecoil Serpent's going to be pinging at Teferi. That doesn't deal with my Stonecoil Serpent, necessarily. But it does technically draw them cards, so it's probably good enough anyway. Untaps for mana. And I think I'm going to concede if I... Oh. If Ugin gets countered down the line. These are not bad cards. Both Blast Zone and Ratchet Bomb are quite useful here, actually. But I'll counter this, maybe. Nope. Alright, well, get in at someone. Let's get in at Teferi to make sure we don't get near that ult. Ugin doesn't really have one. And then we'll tick up Ratchet Bomb, tick up Blast Zone twice to 3. Figure out where we want to start blowing these up. You cannot minus on Stonecoil Serpent. It has protection from multicolored. And Ugin only kills colored permanents. So you could, yeah, you could tick up to 2, I suppose, with your Blast Zone. It gets rid of your Arcane Signet, which is kind of good for me. Opponent's got Field of the Dead. I think Field of the Dead on a board that we are keeping under control is one way we can get out of this game.
No time for a break.
Shatter the Sky. Sure. And make a 2/2. I could honestly keep Ratchet Bomb on 0 just to take care of the spirit tokens, but I don't know if that's actually necessarily a good thing. That being said, Blast Zone can pop off at any time, so we can't really grow it in a way we'd like. They probably just want to tick up to 3 and blow up my mana rocks. That'll win them the game. So let's put 2 charge counters on this. Yeah, they keep eyeing up my Ratchet Bomb. I'm pretty sure that's what their Blast Zone use is going to be. Khan's Bastion. Alright, well, let's see if they got counter magic. If they do, so be it, and I leave. Simply put. Huh. Yeah, I'll just bolt Teferi. If I'm -3, or -5, sorry, the spirit token just takes him out. Whereas this way, I can use Ratchet Bomb to protect Ugin from spirit tokens and work my way up to an ult. While keeping Teferi from tucking Ugin. Okay. Up to 8. They've got a full hand, so Midnight Clock giving them a brand new 7 means virtually nothing to me. This is a wild game, by the way. I have no idea what's going on here. Opponent's probably thinking, why did I use that Spell Pierce on a Prophetic Prism? They would have only just probably drawn a land. General rule of thumb with card draw is you don't counter the card draw, you counter the thing you drew into. Because you don't know if your opponent's drawing into something good. Alright, I think I'm just going to blow this up. Get rid of the spirit token. Now Ugin's thinking, can I minus on Ugin? And the answer is no. Ugin cannot minus on Ugin. In fact, if they make a token here, the next bolt... Well, actually it has to go to Teferi, funnily enough, but we'll play like a Voltaic Servant to block the spirit token, I suppose. It blows my mind they don't have an answer to this, though. No Elspeth Conquers Death, no nothing. Warden makes a 4/4. Sure. Up to 9. Got Crystalline Giant, which could make a flying creature. Actually, we have Khan's Bastion to proliferate. Almost forgot about that. Would I like Blast Zone to be on 4? I absolutely would. Gain 7, draw 7, put 7 permanents from my hand onto the battlefield. I will take the action of put this back into my command zone. Don't think my opponent anticipated the Bastion. Neither did I, personally. Alright, Field of the Dead, Fabled Passage, Emergence Zone. What a wild game. What a wild and completely unpredictable game that was. Yeah, we were basically going to trigger Field of the Dead there and use our tokens from that point forward to absolutely wreck our opponent. We've got Fabled Passage to thin for planes so that we can keep doing that off of the Crucible of Worlds. Can eat our opponent's graveyard repeatedly. What else could we do here? Actually, no, you can't do that, right? Because you sacrifice it first, then exile. So we couldn't do that repeatedly. We could blow up Blast Zone repeatedly, which is a thing. Really just looking for something like Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin, so we could Ghost Quarter lock our opponent. That's kind of where Crucible of Worlds comes into play, but opponent didn't even bother to see what we'd put into play, to be honest, but I think Field of the Dead is good enough as far as our opponent's concerned, so yeah, GG. Okay, we're in, and this is probably going to be an auto-loss kind of game, but we're going to keep this one and we're going to see what we can do. We've got Mind Stone into Solemn, so we at least have some blockers to go around. And yeah, we'll go Fabled Passage and just thin out the deck for our planes, I think, here. If we can get to the point where we can Ugin, I think we might win. We only have to -4, which kind of, you know, still puts it in most burn ranges, but perhaps we won't even need to do that. So we're going to go Reliquary Tower, Mind Stone, opening up in Solemn Simulacrum next turn to grab a planes and also block the Fervent Champion or whatever they play here. Rude. Okay, never mind. Opponent with the Mind Stone Death. We're just going to go with the Prophetic Prism on the off chance we draw a tap land, which we didn't. We'll go with Emergence Zone, I suppose. Doesn't really matter. We'll favour the non-planes anyway for Field of the Dead reason. Dreamstalker Manticore. If this first spell deals 1 damage to any target. Okay, fair enough. Crystalline Giant could be good if it got Hexproof. I think it's bad any other time. So let's just go with Field of Ruin into Solemn to ramp up. Last planes, unfortunately, because we got the one in hand. Ugh. It's not the worst in the world, it just means things like Crucible of Worlds is probably a pretty dead card. Let's just get in for a little bit of damage, and I'm inclined to just let it go. Yeah, let it go. We take 3, essentially, and... Ooh, Chaos Wand. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's 4 to activate. But we can just do Chaos Wand plus Crystalline Giant. Our opponent's deck is going to be full of burn spells, so Chaos Wand can be used against them in that fashion. Got Vigilance on the Crystalline Giant. It's probably going to want to be answered by our opponent before it gets something they won't like. But I've got to imagine Chaos Wand can do some serious work here, and in fact we can go Plains... Ooh, okay. Is this where they Ember Cleave me? This is probably where they Ember Cleave me. I'm gonna double block, like so. I think we're getting Ember Cleaved. No, we're not, actually. Wild. But we did stop a little bit of damage here. We got ourselves a Khan's Bastion. I'm hoping... that would make a lot of sense. Gadrak. Get some treasures. 3 treasures, and you need how many? 4. Awesome. Alright, so we're going to go Chromatic Orrery. And then hope for the best on the Chaos Wand, I suppose. We can do this at any time, right? Target opponent exiles cards from the top of the library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then put the exile cards that weren't cast this way onto the bottom. I guess we don't really care when we do this. We should just do this. I think. Yeah, we don't want them to untap and have lots of Torbranable mana. It's a Magma Spray, 2 damage to a creature. We're going to deal it to the Shield Breaker because it's the most damage on board. Not the best hit in the world, unfortunately. We also don't want to do it on their turn in case we get a death trigger, because I think this also triggers off their own creatures, right? Beginning event step, create a token for each non-token creature that died, yeah. So we wouldn't want them getting a treasure by doing it on their turn either. But we do have Ugin now. It's kind of where we were hoping to be. Ugin now minuses for 4. Let's do Khan's Bastion. This would leave me with a lot of mana, actually. A lot of mana indeed. So let's go with the -4 for Ugin. Deals with the entire board here. 3/4. I guess we could have led with a Chaos Wand on the off chance that they have a Storm's Wrath in their deck. It'd be a bit of a weird one, but it's not completely out of the ordinary. Alright, they're going to make the most of the treasures to discard and draw. Try and finish us, maybe. Okay. So if I play for 4, I've only got 3 mana and I need 4 for the Chaos Wand. I'm going to use their own instance to kill anything that might haste out here, maybe. We did see Embercleave, by the way, in the little pile that went along. I wasn't paying a great deal of attention other than that, but I definitely saw Embercleave. Brimstone Trebuchet is a budget option for sure. When it dies, it deals 2 damage to a target creature or opponent. Ugh. Give me a Lava Coil. You. Thrill of Possibility. Sure. Discard Plains. Draw 2. Got Khan and Mirage Mirror. Ooh, Manifold Key is completely free mana. So we're going to tap for 5. We're going to untap with the Manifold Key for purposes that I haven't figured out yet. But mana's mana. This is legendary, right? So we can't Mirage Mirror it. Let's go for the Chaos Wand, I suppose. Tell you what, let's first kill the Trebuchet. Then let's see what they can get. We should hit some exile, right? Yeah, we got a shock. Well, it's just going to deal the damage to me anyway. I'm not really going to be able to stop that. So let's just shock the Celebrant. And point that wherever they want. We're going to point it at Ugin. Great. Honestly, best possible outcome that could have been. Let's then go with Khan, Scion of the Lands. And let's get the pressure on. Let's make a construct. Play Mirage Mirror, which can be a construct, and Hedron Archive, which pumps the constructs. From there, we are good to go. I can't believe that this game is as close as it is. Dwarven Mine makes a 1/1. Spewer is dead. And then Torbran. Okay. We can make a Mirage Mirror a copy of Torbran, which makes all their burn spells useful. So let's... No, actually not full control here. We're going to full control on our own turn when we Chaos Wand. So let's Chaos Wand our opponent, because I might want to respond to whatever I'm targeting in order to pump it up a little bit. 3 damage to any target Scry, for example. We can do that on Torbran. And in response, Mirage Mirror can become a copy of Torbran. so that that Fateful End deals 5 damage. Mirrodin's core to the bottom, because we don't care. Now we don't need full control anymore. We will bolt the Spear Spewer. Make another Construct. Untap the Chaos Wand. Chaos Wand once again. There's a Lava Coil. Alright, well, coil you. And Golden Egg, see what we can draw. Doubt it's anything useful, but those are terms not bad. Alright, we should be pretty safe to swing in here with a 9-9 back to block. 10-10 back to block, sorry. It stops becoming an artifact when it became Torbran. And we win. What on earth? Today's video has been the weirdest video I have ever recorded for this deck in my entire life. Lists that have no right losing to us are just getting weirdly ruffle stomped by all sorts coming out of our deck, and it's not really even Ugin that ends up carrying the game half of the time. Like, this one was just all down to Chaos Wand. Chaos Wand carried the crap out of this game. Unbelievable. Yeah, I really like this deck. It's a little bit of a one-trick pony. If your opponent's playing Counterspell Tribal, then they're going to probably beat you, but for some reason, we never really came up against that. So, Ugin the Spirit Dragon coming down and wiping seems to be good enough. One-sided board wipe. You'd love to see it on a commander. And yeah, we're just swinging for 20. Constructs, also amazing. We're not even swinging for 20, actually, because we make the Mirage Mirror a copy of the Construct, so we're actually swinging for 33. 33. With then a tick up with Ugin. 33. Oh, actually, no, it's not even 33. We Khan's Bastion and Proliferate so that we can make another Construct, because we can, and I think we should. And then it's a lot more. It's a lot more. Alright, well, yeah, this deck's fun. As I mentioned, this video is going to be a little bit shorter, because I feel like this deck is a little bit of a one-trick pony, even though we've kind of seen a varied level of play here, for sure. Just using our opponent's deck to their disadvantage, for example, was one of those. I think we even, we've done all sorts with this deck anyway. Things that I wouldn't expect to have done in this video. So hopefully you've enjoyed. If you have, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe as well for more Historic Brawl content in the future. It's one of my favorite formats, so it will, of course, be returning when I get the chance to record more. I think this is probably going to do it to my backlog of decks, unfortunately, because I feel my voice is beginning to go. So I've hit my limit, I think. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you have, and I'll see you all next time. Ta-ra.